Welcome back, everybody, to Turnbark Time. I'm the Turn,
I'm Bark.
and we have been here a long time because, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know if you know this, but it is season seven. Not a six, seven, but seven. That one's coming. Don't worry. Episode five.
Episode 5.
So, Bark, real quick update. How we doing? How's the vibe? How's the
Oh,
how's the serenity out there?
how's the Serenity? I've got actually have a student with that as their name. I had to explain the first time I was like, "How's the Serenity today?" He's like, "I don't know." Not too bad. I'm afraid that we're not getting winter this year. So, despite our little rodent groundhog saying there's going to be more winter, it apparently is all going to the northeast.
Yeah, no kidding. They're getting slammed. So. But yeah, we took a week off. Just had we did our connecting the dots. Our kids did amazing. First time without doing high school leaders. It was just our web kids leading the charge, and it was very, very powerful, very cool. Um, so excited to be back at this one. This one I'm really happy to do, and I'm glad you kind of agreed to do it. So I was watching a comedian by the name of David Nehill, and he's an Irish comedian, and he pops up on my Instagram every now and then, and he's just a funny guy, like just even with them, like as an American, like understanding Irish humor and things like that. Like he makes fun of Americans, he makes fun of the Irish, like it kind of goes back and forth. One of my favorite lines from his entire like comedic scene, I don't know if I ever sent you this one, but he goes, Irish people are the only people out there without white guilt. And he goes, it's because we planted potatoes in the ground, and then we had this crazy idea that we would pick them ourselves. And he goes, the best part is when you do that in a crowd, he's like, the African American people get it really quick, and the white people have to think about it a little bit more. So, anyway, leading this, speaking of African, he tells this story. I sent this to Barker because I just thought it was the funniest thing, and I was like, it's a true story, but it's wild. And so in Ireland in 1984, there were a group of unionists, women specifically, that refused to handle produce from South Africa. And their protest, the way the comedian tells it is he's like, these women are like, we refuse to ring up a grapefruit because they were grown in South Africa. And he looks at them and goes, we're Irish. We don't really like grapefruit. Like it's just kind of a random purchase, on a whim. So, keep going. Good job. And they're like, we're gonna protest until there's no more grapefruit. And people in Ireland were like, not really big on grapefruit, so go ahead, do your best. Okay. And so and he tells the story and it builds off of that. But like to dig into the actual story, it's one of those unique moments in history that's very eye-opening, but very powerful.
I I have Irish heritage, and so does Tara. But we really don't. We're part of the generations where we kind of got whitewashed into just white Americanness. So going back and like teaching world history and looking at some of this stuff now and looking at where it all kind of comes from. So it was, yeah. So like, why did this 21-year-old Mary Manning decide one day that she was like, those two grapefruits, you can shove them. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna ring those up.
Yeah, piss off.
Um, and so apparently, I just read this. One of the shop steward, Karen, I think it's either Garon or Garan, uh,
Hmm.
who is also a member of the strike, said that the reason that they chose to strike, they weren't initially moved because they were like, we couldn't even spell apartheid.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
when we first did this, like we didn't know what apartheid was, but they were members of the Irish Distributive and Administrative Trade Union, and they had gotten a directive to boycott goods coming out of South Africa because of the apartheid. Didn't really know what it meant, but the reason that they did it is they were actually upset with the treatment of female workers by Duns, which is
Oh,
apparently a very large supermarket chain. Um, Again, and I'm sad that I'm not well versed enough in Irish culture to sit there and say like, but it really feels like Duns is like something like Walmart
yeah, like a
is
bigger
to
chain.
America. Like
Right.
it's been around since 1944. It opened up in Cork. Um, it's I think one, two, three. I think it's in the third owner from the same family.
Okay.
And that was a whole other rabbit hole that I went
Right.
down.
And
I
you're
learned
good
about
at that.
Duns. I learned about Duns
You learned
because I
about
was like,
things.
is it Dunes or is it,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
Duns. And so, anyways, the problem was that the women only got like 8 minute like bathroom breaks, like two of them a day, like for per shift. And they had to go
Jesus.
up, apparently, had to go up 8 floors
To go to the bathroom and they
to go
only
to the
had 8
bathroom. And then
minutes.
their bags had to be searched and they would be harassed. And if they had feminine hygiene products, they would, that would become an issue. And then some even claim to be like, sexually harassed.
Right.
So this is the Henry Street store,
Yeah.
Duns in Dublin.
Dublin. Yeah.
And so because of those kind of the disparity between male management and female clerks or stewards, shop
Yes.
stewards, they decided that they were going to start protesting. And then it really kind of built out of that. Um, it's also worth saying that at that time, what was it? Where was it? Oh, I looked this up. In the early 80s, the shop owner, the owner of the corporation, it'd be like Ben Dunn Jr., but it wasn't the original. Like it was started by Ben Dunn, but it was like his son Ben. So
Okay.
it wasn't Ben, but it was little Ben.
Yeah.
Um, he apparently got at one point was actually kidnapped by the IRA.
Oh, snap.
Yeah, and then apparently suffered PTSD, and it led to a whole drug thing. And now his sister runs the company.
Okay.
Um,
There you go.
so I
Wow.
mean, the plot thickens.
Yeah. No kidding. There's some twists and turns I didn't even see in there.
And so, like looking at this, like the term boycott, the term
Yeah.
boycott actually comes from Ireland.
Yep.
Um, dates
From
back to
some a-hole.
18 goes back to 1880. There was a guy named Charles, Captain Charles Boycott, and he was a land manager for a lord who was not present in the county. I think it's County Mayo.
Yep.
Um, and they refused to drop rent on their tenant farmers when the economy was like the crops came in super bad and they were evicting people.
Yeah.
And so everybody said, "Hey, we're not going to do the Irish Land League." I think is who he worked for, or maybe that's who. No, the Irish Land League sat there and they got together and said, "Nobody's going to do business with Mr.
Yep.
Boycott." And
Yeah.
so the dude's surname, his last name became a
A
verb
word. Yeah.
for like not trading with somebody. And I just think that's super. I love etymology, and I always talk about like words have history.
Oh, yeah.
And I shared that one. I always like share that one with the kids, and they're like, "Are you serious?" And I go, "Yeah, just imagine like
Your name
your
goes
last
down in
name
history.
becomes like
Yeah.
a negative verb."
Yeah.
So
Somebody like people hated you that much that your name became synonymous with don't do business with them.
yeah, so I
So,
mean, like it's kind of interesting that the movement started as it really was a almost like a feminist movement within the
right.
shop, and then it turned into a political movement. I think there was 9 or 10 women total, counting
Yep.
Mary Manning, that it lasts for 2 years and 9 months.
Correct. And the crazy thing is they were on strike pay, which is 21 pounds a week.
Yeah, I have no
That's
idea how
all.
much they should have been making.
I
Uh,
know, but still, like you can assume that 21 pounds a week is not, you're figuring that means in a month you're making 84 pounds, right?
yeah,
And even if you just equate pounds to dollars, which we know pound sterling is worth more, but it's still, for a month's worth of work, $84 doesn't seem like a livable wage.
no. But the interesting thing is, so like they start getting support. there's actually a South African, like kind of like labor leader who's living in exile.
But sorry, this is where he digs in. The ladies don't know like his like kind of position.
Yeah.
Like we know obviously they, but like there's just a black guy that just starts showing up and supporting their protests. And I didn't find this anywhere. Maybe you can find it. But or maybe you found it. But like the comedian David Neal is telling a story and he's like, yeah, this guy walked like 3 miles a day to come join their protest. And he was like, and none of them knew. There's a black guy, his name's Nimrod, right? Like, and his name's Nimrod. Is it Sajaki? Is that how you say it, or Sajak?
That's how like online things, but I think it's more like Sajak.
Sajak? Okay, that's probably it.
Um, and it's interesting because he shows up and he actually kind of educates the women on apartheid
Yeah. Did you
because
see the Guinness reference?
yeah, he says that South Africa is like a pint of
Like a
Guinness.
pint of Guinness.
You got the whites at the top, and then you have the
The
brown or the
small, a
dark.
small amount of white at the top, and the majority of it is black down below. And I was like, wow, what a metaphor for the Irish. Like that's a pretty big.
That should translate.
Yeah,
And then like I got curious, like so the apartheid runs from the 1948 until 1994.
right.
And apartheid is actually Afrikaans for like separateness.
Hmm.
Because I was kind of curious, like why apartheid? But I guess it's almost literally just an Afrikaans version of segregation.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Just a
Yeah.
word in
That's it. Yeah.
Afrikaans.
So, okay. Um,
Um, yeah, and so these women,
oh,
they
sorry, I'm
go
jumping
ahead.
again. So Nimrod actually is, so he's like a former South African labor leader. And like Barker said, he's living in exile. The other thing that's unique about him is he has his own like kind of notoriety in apartheid because he shared a cell with Barker.
Nelson Mandela.
Nelson Mandela. And for those of you who don't know about apartheid or anything like that, or have a deeper understanding, Nelson Mandela is one of the most outspoken leaders. He's arrested and he lives on, what's the word, Barker? It's something island. Um, oh my God, what's the name of the island? Um, anyway, so he's basically lives in this prison on an island. And when apartheid ends, because he put Nelson Mandela pushes nonviolence. Like he looks up to like Dr. King's example, Gandhi, those kind of things where it's like we're going to get this through peaceful demonstration. Um, and so he actually has a so this Nimrod Sajak, what do we say?
Sajak, I think.
Sajak.
Yeah.
He like comes up and so he is a cellmate of Nelson Mandela during this time. So he's obviously like he's living in exile. He's not allowed to be back. I think it's Robinson Island is the name of the prison. Where Nelson Mandela
You
spends
say
most.
an island, a prison on an island, all I can think of is Elba, but
Oh yeah,
he's
yeah,
not
yeah. No, no,
quoting.
no, no. I'm still looking for it. Barker, you go ahead. I'll jump in a minute. Oh, Robin
Okay.
Island. Robin Island is the name of the prison. Okay.
Oh, there you go. It's also interesting because like, he's not living there with his family either. His family, his wife, and like multiple children are still living in South Africa. And so he starts to build this friendship with these women and start to be like, hey, like at some point, like you should come visit. And I think it's in 80, is it 85, 1985?
85.
Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who is on his way to Oslo, Norway, to
Hmm.
receive a Nobel Peace Prize for his anti-apartheid actions, swings by the protest
Yeah,
and talks to these women. So again, like this dude's on his way to win a Nobel Peace Prize
right.
and stops and is like, "Hey, thanks for And at that point, I don't even think it's really that much. There's not much
No, it's
notoriety,
10. Still 10 people. Like
and they're
that's the unique
actually
thing about this.
and the Catholic Church was kind of at odds with them over what they were doing. They weren't necessarily supported very much by the Catholic Church. But
No.
then when the Archbishop shows up, that kind of swings things, and they kind of get a little bit more support from the Catholic Church. And then I think Tutu also invites them. He says, you guys
Yep.
should come to South Africa and see really what's going on. So rather than, essentially it's kind of an education campaign again.
Right.
Like
But
you
when they
guys are
try,
supporting us.
but when they try and go, they're not allowed to enter the country.
Well, and I think they even get stopped. Like the British government kind of hassles them on the way out. And then
I
when they
would
get
assume
to
so.
South Africa, they don't even get to like I think leave the airport. I think it's
No,
essentially
they're deported, but when they're deported, that's a big deal in Ireland. Like the Irish, at that point, the Irish government is now taking notice and looking into it. And so it's like, here are these 10 women that are protesting, obviously with the feminist movement there, but it also is, I mean, the protest is over produce and the number one product is grapefruits. And now all of a sudden they've met, a major labor leader from South Africa who's been visiting their protests and educating them. And now we have a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and now they're not even allowed in the country of South Africa. And so the story just kind of keeps growing from there.
yeah, and it finally gets I mean, I guess kind of the conclusion of it is that in April of 1987, on the 12th, Ireland is the first Western nation to fully boycott, or I guess like embargo,
Bam.
yeah,
Bam.
ban the
Yeah.
importation of goods from South Africa. Right. Again, putting in history class, I talk about this as this kind of like soft pressure, right? Instead of you have military pressure, which is like hard pressure, where like I'm gonna invade you, I'm gonna drop bombs, and then like after World War II, we see a lot more soft pressure where like we're gonna limit trade and we're gonna try and motivate you economically to change policy that we disagree with by refusing to buy your stuff. Like think about the United States and like Cuba.
Right.
That's why their automobile culture is stuck in like the 1950s
Yep.
because they haven't imported cars since then.
Nope.
Um, and so that's really where the story it's interesting because the story kind of stops and it's like, hooray, like we got Ireland, like randomly these women, this 21-year-old girl who was like, or woman, sorry, who
Yep.
goes, I'm not gonna ring up grapefruits because I'm, for whatever reason,
Right.
turns into an entire national policy that says we are not importing anything from South Africa
Yeah. As long as the
in the span of
apartheid.
less than 3 years. It's
Yeah.
pretty wild.
Well,
Uh,
and then go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
Yeah. No, no, go.
It's just, but like one of the strikers, because they were only getting 21 pounds like a week, like some of them like had their like one of them lost their house to foreclosure.
Yep.
And then Karen said that after the strike was over and they tried to come back to work, rather than like being treated better, she was like, we were bullied
Yep.
and like blacklisted and like essentially couldn't get jobs in Dublin because we were these agitators.
Hmm.
Like what I mean? So it's like as much as it's like this victory on the in a national sense, it's a victory, but on the individual personal level, for a lot of them, they ended up continuously paying the price. Um, but they eventually do get to go visit South Africa.
Yep.
And then they are actually invited to attend the funeral of Nelson
Well,
Mandela.
so they meet Nelson Mandela.
Yeah.
They do get to meet Nelson Mandela. They meet him in 1990 when he actually receives a Freedom of City of Dublin award. And he said the strikers demonstrated that ordinary people from far away from the crucible of apartheid cared for our freedom, right? And so it was this big thing because again, like we're talking about, it's 10 ladies in Ireland, right? Which is thousands of miles away from South Africa, right? And no real investment in that country, but making a difference. And he even said it helped him keep him going when he was in prison because he heard about them and he heard about what they were doing and everything like that. And there's actually a street in Johannesburg that's named for Mary Manning. She has her own street. And then, like Barker said, when Nelson Mandela passes away, the strikers attend his funeral, or some, I shouldn't say all, some of the strikers attend his funeral in 2013.
Yeah. If you are at all curious, like as we kind of wrap this up, um, our ELA department, my building at the sophomore level, one of the books that some of them read in class is a autobiography by Trevor Noah.
Oh yeah.
Title of the book is Born a Crime, because Trevor Noah is a comedian who is biracial, was born a biracial child during the apartheid when there was actually like laws that said that you could not have a mixed race relationship. And so that is the title of his book, because he's like, I think his dad was European, and his mom was obviously Black and South African. Um, and so he talks about, the struggle of being a biracial kid in a dichotomy world where he
Mhm.
wasn't 100% Black and he definitely wasn't considered to be white, and what the struggles were for that. So it's kind of again, I think we're getting to the point where we're starting to give more voice to average people's stories rather than just the great men of history stories.
Yeah.
Um, and if you have the audiobook, Trevor Noah's often I consider pleasant to listen to.
Oh yeah, I would agree.
And so it's an interesting look into other areas. I think I'm really happy that I get to teach world, because I get to talk about a lot of stuff that I know that when I was in school we didn't talk about, and a lot of kids have no idea that all this other stuff happened.
Yeah.
Um, Getting them to buy into why it's interesting might be difficult at times, but
It's the life we chose.
Barker, I'm never going to South Africa. You
You
never
know,
know, man. You never
yeah,
know.
you really never know. We were
So
having a conversation today in class about how we were talking about Thomas Jefferson, and so we were talking about laissez-faire economic policy. And I was like, "What does that sound like?" I was like, "What language?" And they're like, "French." And I was like, "Oh, oh, oh." And then they were like, I was like, "How many of you want to go to France?" They all raised their hand. I said, "You have to do one thing if you go to France." And I was like, "What's that?" And I was like, "You have to eat escargot." And they're like, "What's that?" And then one kid knew, and he was like, "No." And I was like, "You ever had clams before?" And they were like, "Yeah." I was like, "Did you like them?" They're like, "Yeah." And I was like, "You'll like snails." And they're like, "Oh no!" Ah. It's like, trust me, it's good.
yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I think there's a lot of there's been some pushback in communities around the country for students that are exercising their political speech and their right to protest, and are going, what are we teaching in schools? And we taught eighth grade together for a long time in Quincy. And I remember our principal, avid listener, avid principal,
Yep.
Scott
Same.
Ramsey, always going, why in the world in second semester do the eighth graders always want to have a protest on stuff? And it's
And
like, boss, we've been doing our job.
yeah,
We've been teaching the American Revolution. We've talked about the Boston Tea Party. We've talked about, right, boycotting British products.
yeah,
Kids are understanding. You got to make a stand. Like, I don't understand people how people understand the connection. Like, they don't see the connection between teaching early American history and kids being motivated to protest. Maybe you don't agree with their political stance of what they're protesting,
yeah,
but again, like our job as educators, right, is to not tell them what to protest, but to inform them what their rights are and support them if they
absolutely.
choose to exercise those rights.
Yeah,
Um, Whether it be what we're seeing now, or we had protests, not too long ago that said that we don't like masks, we don't like vaccines, and like
yeah,
we still, as a building, treated it the same way. So I
yeah.
mean, just really interesting, and it's really powerful to think like, did Mary Manning, when she would she have ever thought when she walked out that first day?
Yeah. The impact she would make.
Yeah. So the other one that I saw another reel. This is moderately connected.
Mhm.
Um, as we talk about nonviolent protest, Gandhi grew up in South Africa,
Yeah,
and what that was part of what motivated him to go home and go back to India and try and make things better in India through nonviolence, right? So there's a South African connection there. But I was watching a teacher work with, it looked like probably upper elementary, maybe early, maybe like probably like fourth to fifth graders. And he
Sure.
said, "You guys all know who Martin Luther King Jr. is?" And the kids are all like, "Yeah." And they go, "Do you guys know why he was important?" They're like, "Yeah." And he goes, "What brand shoes was he wearing when he gave that speech, the I Have a Dream speech?"
Ooh.
And the kids were like, and he goes, "If you don't know, don't guess. We're not chasing clouds."
Yeah.
And they didn't know. And he goes, "Now Rosa Parks, when she refused to move on the bus, what brand was the jacket she was wearing?" And the kids were like, "Well, we don't know." And he goes, "Exactly." He goes, "These great people that did great things, nobody cared what jacket, what shoe they were wearing when
Yeah.
they did it. It
Yeah.
was about what they, what I mean? So it kind of goes back to that idea of like, if we kind of can get kids to quit focusing on all the window dressing
Hmm.
and get down to, can we get kids to think and truly like think about, like, do you agree with things, or do you think things are right or wrong? And to I think it's also really important that we show that violence isn't always the answer.
No.
um anyway, I'm meandering and kind of on a soapbox right now,
No,
but
you're good.
I think it's great that we
But
give
so
kids the tools.
So in building off of that, man, I remember our biggest one. Remember our great leggings protest that was coming down the pipe, and I remember if it was 2015, 16, something like that. And so basically, our school used to have a dress code that said skin tight clothing was inappropriate. And regardless of how you feel about it, the it was interesting to hear the debate because we were debating dress code in both of our classes. And again, these are separate conversations. Barker taught one, two, three, three doors down, and on the opposite side of the hall is me. And the debate in my class was, the girls were really upset. They wanted to be able to wear yoga pants to school and leggings and just be able to wear that. And they had all these different debates. And finally, like there were some boys in my class, and I remember very clear that they were apathetic. They were just like, what does it matter? Like, why do you care so much? And I remember a girl making the connection that if she wanted them on her side, she had to figure out a way. And she looked him dead in the eyes and she goes, us not being able to wear leggings is like you not being able to wear basketball shorts. And you just saw light bulb after light bulb click. And they were like, well, that's crap. No, we need to make sure that we'll wear leggings if you need us to. And so Mr. Ramsey, our again avid principal, avid listener, was like, "What is about to happen?" And they're like, "He can't suspend us all." And Barker and I sat them all down and were like, "Yes, he can. Like, yes, he absolutely can."
Because they wanted to do it on
Oh,
Connect Dots, which is a
yeah,
really big culture
building,
day for that school, for
yeah.
Quincy
And
Junior
so
Middle School.
So we sat him down, but we got to teach the moment about how, yes, you see protests that are successful, but do you see the people who got what before they win the battle or before they win the war, they lose the battle and they get suspended. They deal with all the gripe and the gruff and everything like that. And it's one of those where you have to explain that motion to them. And even it was even asked in the most recent protest that we had, students are like, "Can we get in trouble for this?" And I said, "Yes, absolutely you can." And I said, you have to understand that if you believe in something strong enough, then you can do it, but you're willing to take that trouble that you're going to get in. You don't run from it, you don't hide from it. I said, but if you're just walking out to giggle and be like, I'm not in class, then you're probably not in the right spot, And it's teaching when to use these rights, when to exercise them, so they don't lose their power.
And I remember we got them to agree to not do that on that day.
Yep. And
And
we agreed.
then a few months later, they participated in a nationwide
Hmm.
movement and did a really good job. They went out to the stadium. Mr. Ramsey asked them to explain why they were there. They were very eloquent in their response
Yeah.
and stated their intentions and their time limit, and did what they said they would do. And after their time was up, returned back to class. So
Yeah.
it's just a matter of, I think there's a really, I don't know. Well, for the tens of our followers out there, I'm probably not going to cause too many waves.
No,
But
we'll be okay.
I often think that if we as adults want our kids to handle things with poise and grace and the proper amount of decorum, that we as the adults need to be doing a better job of modeling that.
I'd agree. I think that's fair to say. And I'd say that like the things that people see in the media or in social media, right, focuses on how do I get as much attention as possible. So it's not going to be that poise, that decorum, that grace. It's going to be the shouting and the encouraging people to say hurtful things to get responses. So, but again, it's cool to see the power of a movement from something so far away. And I think that's like the whole message here is here's a really cool story that grew into something so powerful and was recognized by so many people who made a great impact on the world that these ladies were a part of. So,
And I think we have the ability to do that even more today because of our interconnectedness with social media. Um, you know what I mean? So it's a matter of like if you're gonna if you're going to go, you should be able to elaborate and explain what your intentions are, what your justifications are for why you're doing what you're doing. And like you said, if you can't do that and you're just there because, well, I'm not in class, then right, you're really kind of just making a, you're not there. Like you said, I'm just repeat what you said. It's you're
I
there for
agree.
the wrong reasons. And we can,
Yeah,
there's always going to be that contingent there
100%.
at some point. So, but anyway, yeah, really cool story that came out of just like I think the best way that we can probably help ourselves out as a genre of education is to layer some to history is actually really interesting because it's all these really neat stories. And if you can add some humor to it and get kids to or get people to laugh while they're learning, I mean, those people are paying 40, $50 a ticket to sit at
Yeah.
a adult establishment and
Yeah.
have that guy essentially talk about, labor history,
Right.
you know.
So,
So we do it for free.
yeah, we do. And we put it on the internet so you can watch it again and again and again.
And if you're here at like minute 35 and you're one of our very probably rare new listeners, please like and subscribe.
Yep. And always feel free to throw us ideas. If you follow our
Yes.
Instagram page, just throw us ideas. We're always down to talk about whatever you guys want to learn about. Suggestion from Avid Principal. Did we ever do DB Cooper?
I don't think so. I'm willing to put it in the hopper.
That's what he threw out there after the one from 2 weeks ago. He was like, because I was like, oh, he's like, oh, aliens. He's like, stuff, plane crashes, things like that. So,
Parachutes in Southwest Washington.
yep.
We
So,
did there's a really great escape room in Vancouver that's DB Cooper themed. So
oh, is it? Did you get
yeah,
out?
we did that for one of my birthdays. There's two different escape room places in Vancouver.
Hmm.
When we do that episode, I'll give them a shout out because
Love that.
there are good escape room people who do a really good job and work really hard to put out a good product,
Yep.
and some other people that are just trying to jump onto a fad. And there's two outfits in Vancouver, Washington that do a really good job.
Also, shout out, there's a really good one in Eugene, Oregon that I can vouch for. Have solved two of their rooms, and I would immediately go back and solve the other three because it was a great time. So, well, guys, until next time, I'm the turn,
I'm the Bark.
and we're going to be here a long time. Have a good night, everybody.
Be safe.
And by golly, you just be well. And before we leave, go RA long. Get it done this weekend.
Gonna beat the Greyhounds.